The handshake in American business. What is the proper way to shake hands?
Now, when you shake hands, you reach your hand out and you go all the way in until your web touches their web. And I mean by that, all the way in. That's an American business handshake. So your palm is touching their palm all the way in. And then it's a three-pumper. That's what I call it. It's a three-pumper. And while you're shaking their hand, use their name. Hello, David. It's a pleasure to meet you. So now while you say their name, they're enraptured. Here's a little trick that you can play. This is from Desmond Morris, the famous anthropologist who studied primates. And he realized that when mammals meet one another, they raise their eyebrows a sixth of a second, very quickly. So when I reach to shake someone's hand, I'll reach out and say, "Hello, Tamara. My name is Phyllis Davis." It's unnoticeable, but it makes your eyes unprotected and gives the other person the sense that you trust them.
How do men and women shake hands differently?
Well, it's very interesting because, after all, we are primates. We do respond to each other differently. And when a man shakes hands with a woman, if he wants to really put her at ease, he'll square his shoulders to her. When men shake hands, they angle their shoulders, and because that's what's comfortable to them. And you can try it right now. Two men, if you're out there and you're watching, think how you shake hands. But when women shake hands, we align our shoulders straight onto one another. So if a man wants to make me comfortable, he'll square his shoulders to me when he shakes my hand. If I want to make a man comfortable, I'll angle my body to his to make him comfortable.
How do rank and hierarchy affect who initiates a handshake?
Well, let's take an example. You work in a big company, and let's say that you run into the CEO of your company in the elevator. Now, one might think that you would initiate the handshake, but that's incorrect. The senior executive in a company initiates the handshake of someone in lower management. So it's based on hierarchy. As you'll see, a lot of manners are based on hierarchy.
If I'm a visitor in an office, who initiates the handshake?
Well, let's say that you walk into someone's office and you're selling something. Now, your main thought would be to walk in and put your hand out to shake someone's hand. In fact, that's not true. You wait for them to initiate the handshake. So there's a matter of who initiates a handshake in American business.
Is it proper for women to initiate a handshake?
Women in today's business initiate a handshake. But not all women. There are certain parts of the country and women of a certain age who do not initiate a handshake. I'm originally from Texas, and I have 7 aunts. And, they were raised in a small community in Texas, and they shake hands with people they know. They don't shake hands with strangers, and they're in their late 80s and 90s now. I come from a family of long lineage. And it's just something, and they're not in business today. But most women in business today around the United States shake hands in business.
If I'm meeting with a client, who should initiate the handshake?
If a client comes to your campus, always do your best to initiate the handshake and make them completely welcome.
When is it inappropriate to initiate a handshake?
Well, I've had some very interesting experiences with that. I've traveled and taught all over the world, and I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and I tried to initiate a handshake with a gentleman in an affair in Beverly Hills, and he wouldn't shake my hand because he was a religious Jew. And I really didn't see his yarmulke. I didn't understand that I should not have initiated that handshake. And he put his hand behind his back. And I was very surprised. So it can happen. I've been very sensitive to that since then. It was a long time ago, and I've learned a lot about who to offer to initiate a handshake with from people from different ethnicities and religions around the world.
What if I initiate a handshake and it's refused?
You don't ask for an apology. You don't say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." You don't do that in business. You don't say you're sorry in business. You make it interactive and you say, "Forgive me. I didn't realize that was not part of your culture." Just say, "Forgive me." And a lot is forgiven because that person has to, in fact, forgive you if you ask for it. I mean, it's unconscious, but it works very easily. So don't say, "I'm sorry" in business.
Should I shake hands with people I see in my office every day?
You don't need to shake hands with people in your office you see every day unless there's a reason to. For example, congratulations. or let's say that someone you haven't seen in 2 or 3 days, you're really glad to see them, then a handshake is appropriate.
Should I stand or sit when shaking hands with someone?
Always, always stand. Always stand. There is no exception except for 2. And that is, 1, if you're unable to stand because you have a physical disability. And the other one is if you're in the back of a round booth where it's physically impossible to stand. Even then, you do sort of a courtesy bow. You put your hand on your chest, you raise halfway from the booth, and you reach across to initiate a handshake.
Are the business kiss or business hug appropriate greetings?
It's so common in business. And yet, it's not appropriate. Any physical contact besides a handshake is not appropriate unless you pat someone on the back, or there are very few gestures you can make that are not considered intimate in business. So a handshake is about the only time you really ever touch anyone. Now, we live in Southern California, and everybody's got a hug or a cheek kiss. It's very much like the Parisian culture, where kisses are meant for close friends on both sides, the European kiss on both sides of the cheek. In America, some areas and some parts of the country do initiate a quick hug. It's very similar to the Parisian double cheek kiss, but it's reserved for people you know. Don't hug someone you don't know.
How should I handle it if a business acquaintance tries to kiss or hug me in greeting?
It's touchy, isn't it? And every situation is on a case-by-case basis. I create very clear boundaries with people, and I'm not offended if someone hugs me, but I don't really welcome that. It's just the way I stand and keep my distance, and I want to be treated as a professional woman. I've been self-employed for 33 years. That's a long time in business, and I've come up through the ranks as a woman in business, and I've had to hold myself just a little apart so that I could have the respect that men have in business after all these years.